Am I the asshole for telling my sister it is her job to look after mom? This happened yesterday and I'm still trying to figure out if I'm an asshole or not. Quick background: I don't live with my family. I'm 30 and have my own house and stuff going on. My sister is 27 and lives with my mum and dad. Dad usually works away for days on end, so it is usually just mum and sister at home. Sister is saving for a house and mum and dad are contributing half towards this. To be clear, the contract means that they will own half of the house too for when she sells, but without this she simply wouldn't be able to afford a house because she doesn't save money. She currently pays £120 a month towards the cost of mum and dad's house until she gets a mortgage and moves out. All four of us work full-time. My mum has recently had surgery, leaving her with an open wound. Apparently it needs to heal from the outside, and so that's normal? Understandably, she's in a lot of pain and was prescribed morphine yesterday. I was busy cleaning up, then got a phone call from my dad asking if I can go and sit with my mum for a few hours while she needs morphine to make sure she is okay. He explained he had asked sister already, but she started arguing, saying she was going out for drinks with her friend. Mum has had morphine a few years back and was very confused and hallucinated at the time. I ask where my sister is and why she isn't with mum, and am told she's going out to see a friend so mum will be home alone otherwise. I then call my sister and why she isn't cancelling seeing her friend if mum needs her at home with her. She tells me she has already booked a table and doesn't want to cancel, so we'll just give mum the morphine when she gets home in a few hours. I'm unhappy with this, as it then means but has to deal with much milder painkillers for a literal open wound, just so sister can go see a friend. I tell her that mum is giving her a massive opportunity by buying half a house with her and only charging her pennies to live with her, and it seems very unreasonable, so go out and leave mum alone just so she can see a friend. I'm the end. Sister did go out, so I went and sat with mum. Sister had the morphine prescription with her, so mum couldn't have had it anyway, but she still needed help like filling her water bottle because, again, she has an open wound and it hurts a lot to move. So now sister thinks I'm an asshole for saying it is her responsibility, and I think she is the asshole. I admittedly wasn't doing anything important so could go and sit with mum, but I felt that the point was that sister seems very ungrateful for what mums and dad are doing for her, and that cancelling seeing friend and staying with mum seemed the obvious thing to do. So am I an asshole? I write this on my phone, so apologies for any formatting, spelling errors. Edit. Further info: surgery was 3 days ago, so 2 days before this incident. Prior to surgery mum was working full-time so didn't need any help. This is all new. I had to pick mum up from hospital after the surgery because sister was out with friends then too. And sister didn't take the actual medication with her, just the paper prescription. Edit 2. A few people have mentioned sister giving care the rest of the time, which would be fair enough if it was the case. Mum said yesterday she has let down by sister. Sister asked her before going out if she was being selfish and mum said yes because she isn't getting much help from her. Mum is fiercely independent and would say she doesn't need help if she was in a real bad state, and a lot of the time you have to read between the lines with her. She made it sound like sister hasn't really done anything, as if she says she's fine then she'll just leave her to it. Hopefully last edit. To be clear, I was happy to spend time with mum. It was more a matter of finding it hard to comprehend that sister would be leaving her alone. Sister went out with paper prescription at around 1 p.m. and didn't get back with medications until 5:30-ish, which to me is 4.5 hours that she could have been medicated. I love spending time with my mum and was happy to go over. It was more a case of finding it hard to believe that sister would have happily left her alone. I'm more concerned why your sister took your mum's pain pills with her. I'm going with everyone sucks here, obviously not your mum. If you had plans, I would argue that yes, your sister should cancel. However, you didn't have plans. I'm assuming they don't live too far from you and you should do this for your mum. It's not a case of, she owes mum and dad so all the responsibility is on her. Your priority should be your mum, not some rivalry with your sister about who owes what to her. Your sister should be very grateful and willing to help her mum, so she sucks too. You are the asshole. You described their whole financial relationship but I didn't notice anywhere in the where it said, and also she never gets to have a life, or, this agreement, which doesn't otherwise pertain to her, absolves other sister of ever caring for our parents in the event of injury or illness. Presumably this is going to be a long recovery and your sister will help out in a lot of ways over that time. It is not a huge ask for you to come and do something on a night when she had existing plans with friends. Yeah, you are the asshole. It's your mom too, and your sister is allowed to have a life. Furthermore, you were close enough to go stay with your mom and were doing nothing important as per your words. But I would also say that it's okay for the sister to have a break. It seems like other than going to get a bite to eat, she's been taking care of the mom. Which I'm assuming is round-the-clock care. You wouldn't expect someone you hired to do that multiple days in a row without taking a day off. You are the asshole. Your sister is allowed to have a life. If it's that bad, hire in a nurse to come sit with your mom. Not the asshole. The sister sounds lazy, irresponsible and selfish, as she heavily depends on your parents, so she should be stepping up to take care of your mother, as you have a separate life, and even though you are happy to spend time with your mother, you shouldn't have to do it because your sister wants to go and meet people. Everyone sucks here. You are the asshole. Your dad asked you to watch your mom. You overstepped the request and yelled at your sister for not watching her mom. Your sister isn't obligated to throw away her plans, nor is she your mom's caretaker. Whatever deal your sister has, is between her and your parents. Edit. Changing to everyone sucks here since this has been going on for a while. Would have gone with nah, but sister is ta. Am I the asshole for not picking my son up from work? My son, 18, recently got his first job and is saving up for a car. As of right now we, his father and myself, take him to and from work. My son normally works traditional first and second shift hours. This would be between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m., although not from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. all at once. Last week, however, his boss asked him if, since he graduated and was free for the summer, he wanted to try a midnight shift. This shift runs from midnight to 5 a.m. My son said he would try it once to see how it went. My son did not stop to think of the strain this would put on us, the people who give him his ride. It was an honest mistake, and we all decided that since it was just a one-time thing, we would do it and be done with it. The problem is that his boss scheduled him a whole week of this shift and then she quit the job. We told my son that we would all manage and ride out the week, but that would have to be the end of it because we can't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning all the time to go pick him up because we have jobs too. This was fine with everyone all around. For the last 2 nights my son has had to work with a regional manager who is subbing for the manager who quit. This new manager is under the impression that my son is their new midnights guy. My son has corrected her on this repeatedly. Even by text, because she keeps harassing him to work these shifts. Last night he went to work and almost immediately started texting us that she was yelling at him about working more midnights shifts and being generally aggressive. He said no matter how many times he said no, she would just keep on. We told my son to be firm and stick with his answer. He did so, and she continued to make his shift miserable by yelling and badgering. We then told my son he was being paid to work and not be abused, and if he wanted to he could tell her to stop screaming at him or he was going to leave and we would pick him up. He declined to do this because he thought he might lose his job. He then asked to call him and state there was an emergency and we had to come get him. We told him no. He needed to stand up for himself and address the problem because he's an adult and we can't fight those battles for him. If he had been up front and told his manager the reason he was leaving, would have gone to pick him up. I wonder if I oughta for not making this call and then picking him up. He was clearly miserable and in a situation he didn't know how to handle. Our logic was that he is going to have these kinds of issues in his life all the time and he needs to deal with them in a direct manner that makes clear his intentions. I just feel bad though, and it may simply be parental guilt of not protecting my baby, but I also want him to learn about life. On the other hand, this is also on a temporary job at a coffee shop and in the end he can get another. I don't know, am I the asshole? Edit. I should have addressed this, but I didn't think about it. But son does not yet have a driver's license. The schools where we live do not teach driver's education. This means that we have to pay for driving school to get a certification and then take the test at the local office. He does have a learning permit, but due to the pandemic we were unable to schedule any lessons. Now that the lessons are allowed again, they are so backlogged we can't get any appointments. We are trying to get him trained ourselves, but this means we have to do X amount of hours and only then between certain hours of the day. It is very hard to do this between work schedules, but we're getting there. What about this? You can schedule me for overnight shifts, but I have no way to get here unless you, the boss, comes and picks me up and takes me home. Not the asshole. You're right. He's an adult and needs to do this himself. This is good parenting. Not the asshole. Unfortunately, your son caused this issue by walking into a trap. What he needs to do is report the manager and work until he can get another job. This way, he has a jump point when it gets bad. Not the asshole. You are correct in this, he is almost an adult and he should learn how to fix situations like these himself. Nah. I agree with your point, he needs to stand up for himself. However, he doesn't want to lose his job over this. I think the best course of action is to speak to someone higher up about her behavior. If he said no overnights, then that should be the end of the discussion. Not the asshole. Teach him early and it'll benefit him as he grow. I know someone whose parent always fought his battle for him and now he struggles when the world doesn't go his way and his parent isn't in the position to protect him. Not the asshole. There's two lessons here. Your son should never have agreed to even one night shift knowing he did not have a ride. He knew you wouldn't be able to drive those hours long term. He shouldn't have asked you to do it once. You are right to force him to handle his own problems. That's what a starter job is, for learning to handle these things and not run to mommy whenever he has a conflict. You are setting him up for success. NTA. It's highly out of place for you to solve this issue for him, and while this isn't what was really asked of you this time, he needs to decide for himself to either quit, or figure it out somehow. It's not like you're denying him advice. Am I the asshole for not wanting my fiancé's mom to be at our wedding? I, 23NB, have never felt very welcome around any of my fiancé's, 24 male, family. They mostly act like I'm not there, and while it is annoying for both of us, we've just been hoping that they'd eventually warm up to me. His grandparents are excluded because they actually like me. His birthday was the day before Mother's Day, and his mother came down and rented a place for us all to stay in with their respective partners for the weekend to celebrate both occasions. I was ignored for most of the time, only really getting any conversation from one of my fiancé and his brother's girlfriends. After dinner, we were playing CAH and I started getting angry texts from my own mother, who I told 2 weeks in advance about my plans for the weekend, and she had said it was okay. That I was a bad child and I was abandoning her for Mother's Day. All of the anxiety and frustration I had built up, and I ended up crying in the bathroom over it. My fiancé came in to check on me, and even though he told me I didn't have to go back, I didn't want to make a scene and I eventually sat back down at the table to play again. They didn't really seem to care that I looked upset. I got comfortable after a moment and ended up making a joke about not picking one of my fiancé's brother's cards. It wasn't malicious at all. I literally just said, "Haha, you totally shouldn't pick brother's name's card." He looked at me and proceeded to call me a dick in front of everyone. I explained that I didn't mean to hurt his feelings and I wasn't trying to be malicious, but I was already starting to cry again and I had to try to just look down and calm myself. My fiancé was the only person who stood up for me. His mother kept giving me weird looks until we left to go to bed. We spoke about it before bed and agreed to leave early the next day. We were both feeling mentally exhausted and I didn't want to be around people who didn't like me. We told his mother that we'd be taking my car to the place we were going and she got mad, telling him that I should just leave by myself and she'd just drop him off at our house later. I stuck it out for most of the day, but we had to leave. A couple of days later, my fiancé found out that she had called the entire family and told them that I was rude and mean to everyone the whole weekend. We agreed that we don't want her to be part of our marriage or our future children's lives if she's going to treat me this way, but some of my family is telling me that I'm supposed to just love her and basically let her be mean to me because she's my fiancé's mother. Too long did not read. My fiancé's mother doesn't like me and spread rumors about me to her family. I don't want her at my wedding or to be around our future kids if she can't respect me. Edit. I didn't really explain the full situation, I think, because people think I was not speaking the whole time or that it was completely me. The issue is that both I and my fiancé talked about this and agreed that we didn't want this. He was the one who brought up wanting to leave early, and he was also uncomfortable with the way they celebrated his birthday and the way they were talking to me. I have met his mother quite a few times and she has never really wanted to speak to me. She's always pretty much flat out ignored me. I also should have definitely included the 2 details of my mother being bipolar, or that I am autistic, and they are all aware of this. Not the asshole. It's not normal to be treated poorly and you certainly shouldn't be putting up with it. Yours and your partner's feelings are both super important. He is probably going to want his family there, but you should not be treated poorly. So you both need to come up with boundaries and he needs to be responsible for enforcing them. Not the asshole. Someone makes a good point that not inviting her may cause many problems. But from the sounds of it, such conflict and its consequences may be beneficial for the enjoyment of your own wedding. However okay your fiancé is with that. Info: did you and fiancé bond over having controlling mothers? Sounds like Op left out all the stuff she did that turned off the family. What was detailed in that phone call? Info. Anyway, good luck with your marriage. Maybe you're the angel you describe. Maybe not. NTA. May I suggest just normal and just no family? So during your weekend at someone else's house you spent hours locked in their bathroom and crying? The rest of the time you moped and didn't initiate conversations. During a notoriously foul-mouthed game, you got hurt and ran away when someone used a bad word when you tried to disrupt their play. Sounds like you were a real delight to be around. You are the asshole. Nothing your Mill said was factually untrue. It does sound like you're quite emotional and rude, and she the same. I don't think you can say she is the arsehole for saying her opinion to the rest of the family. If you and your fiancé want to cut her off, that's your prerogative. Just make sure your fiancé is actually on board with that, or it'll cause problems further down the line. And remember that once you cut someone out, they cut you out as well. I'm curious, when you say people were ignoring you, what does that mean? Were they just not engaging with you, like initializing conversation with you, or did you try to start a conversation with them and they pretended you weren't in the room? Am I the asshole for not helping our daughter with any of her bills or money problems? Around the time she was 16, our daughter, Kim, despite her mom and I doing everything we could to prevent it and help, got into drugs and hanging out with people that led her down that path. Around that time also she dropped out of high school, got a part-time job, and began to treat her mom and I with such contempt, such hatred. Eventually she hit rock bottom and got arrested. My wife and I took out loans to get her a lawyer, get her into a good rehab. She completed rehab successfully, and because she's on probation she remains clean, because otherwise she'd go to jail. We let her continue living with us and for a while everything was fine. She got a better job and decided to get her GED, so we bought her a little car, not brand new but in really good condition. Despite being clean and employed, she treats the car like shit and it now looks awful. About a year and a half ago Kim began to treat my wife and I absolutely terribly. It's like she blames us for all her problems, despite us doing everything we could to help her, therapy, doctors, offering alternatives to school and work. She also treats out home like dirt. She makes messes and leaves them for us to clean up. She throws tantrums when we ask her to help out around the house. She breaks things and lies. She's been stealing from us because her job doesn't pay enough and she refuses to take more hours. It all came to head around that time when my wife made something for dinner that she and I like but Kim doesn't. Kim has always known she's free to make or get herself something else if she doesn't want what's offered, seeing as she's now 19 and not a helpless kid. Kim started screaming at her mother, leaving my wife in tears, and it ended with Kim throwing the dinner into the yard and ordering her mom to make something else. We told Kim that night that we weren't putting up with it anymore and she needed to find a new place to live. She was gone within 2 weeks and didn't speak to us for 4 months. When she started contacting us, it was to demand money in a very entitled manner because her roommate wasn't helping and they were behind on bills. I reminded her that her mom and I warned her that she was on her own because of how she treated us, that if she wanted to make the rules and be in charge she would be footing the bill. She stopped speaking to us again. We've been blocked on social media, and we had no idea that they were evicted, and she's been couch surfing, living in her car for several months until my mother called me and gave me a huge lecture on letting Kim suffer. Despite us telling her about Kim's struggles, she refuses to believe that Kim is the problem. My wife and I stand firm on not helping Kim until she's willing to treat us better, but Kim has been telling the rest of the family how awful we are, and now half the family isn't speaking to us, or the ones that are denigrating us. Are we the assholes? Edit. I just realized that my username might be a bit confusing. We do have 3 kids, but they are quite a bit older than Kim. My wife and I married at 18 and welcomed our oldest daughter and son at 20 and 21, respectively. When the youngest was 17, she left for college, and we learned shortly that we would be having Kim at 37 years old. We're now 56. Maybe being older parents is partly to blame. Not the asshole. And if they all care so much, let them take her in. Not the asshole. Addicts are enormous manipulators. Even if she is still clean, your daughter's skills of manipulation. There's a chance that your daughter is using drugs again. In fact, there's a chance that she started using about the same time she started treating you badly again and demanding money. It is never a good idea to give money, or anything worth money, to an addict, even a recovering addict. If you do want to provide financial help, at some point, pay the expenses directly to the billing entity. Don't give her money. Not the asshole. Kim bit the hand that fed her. Until she learns to be responsible and respectful, you cannot continue enabling her behavior. Not the asshole. Your daughter sounds like my sister. Except my sister is now 33. My mom just bought her a 5th car, she has totaled the rest. My sister doesn't work, lives in a camper and has no plans to get her shit together. Recently asked if she could move her camper back to my parents' house and have them pay for her power, water. I really think had my parents held her accountable in her early adulthood, maybe she would be a functional adult now. But every time things get rough, my mom swoops in to save her, by constantly saving her when she is making no effort on her own. It just enables bad behavior. If Kim was working on herself, by all means help. We all need a hand up sometimes. But the initiative to do better has to come from her. Not the asshole. You've continued to bend over backwards for your daughter and been rewarded with nothing but contempt. She feels that she can treat you however she likes and still demand your time and resources while manipulating the rest of your family. Good luck, and if I were you I would go no contact. Not the asshole. She's telling the stories to get the pity support. Eventually she'll also act bratty and entitled enough that others will also realize they've been taken. Unless you have a martyr type in your extended family. Then she and that person may have years of a dysfunctional relationship ahead of them. Not the asshole. Stand firm. Consequences are the only chance she's got at getting better. You're doing the right thing by not enabling her. That being said, have you ever gotten her mental health care outside of rehab? 19 is not too old for you to still take an active role in her health. It sounds like there's at least some potential for a mental health issue at play here. Whether she's bipolar or has a personality disorder or what, we can't armchair diagnose her on Reddit, but a professional may be able to help. Drug use in adolescence doesn't necessarily mean anything happened to her other than peer pressure and bad choices, but in some cases it can be partially or wholly driven by self-medication for undiagnosed issues. Not the asshole, but anyone else think she's back on drugs? The temper tantrums, stealing, lying,